Hello everyone, I am the Mended Kirby, and welcome to my channel, The Commander Tavern. The Commander Tavern is a channel dedicated to my favorite Magic the Gathering format. The Brewery is a series on this channel showcasing my spicy brews and other deck techs. On this episode of The Brewery, I'll be discussing my take on a new commander from Final Fantasy, Hope Estheim. If you like this deck or any of the cards I'll be mentioning throughout the video, please consider using my TCG Player affiliate link when purchasing those cards. You can find that link down in the description. It'll really help out the channel and no extra cost to you. But the very best way you can help up the channel is with my Patreon. There are plenty of perks for being a patron, such as early access to certain videos, exclusive deck techs, gifts, and more for as little as $1. You could also become a channel member for just 99 cents. Show off your support with a logo next to your name and exclusive emojis. Or you can always just support my channel for free by simply liking, subscribing, and sharing, which also helps out a lot. I put out a video every Monday, so you don't want to miss out. You can join my Discord server for free if you want to join the Commander Tavern community. All pertinent links are down in the description. Alright, let's get back to the episode. Hope is a 2/2 human wizard with lifelink for 1 white and 1 blue. At the beginning of your end step, you mill all opponents an amount of cards equal to the life you drew that turn. Not only is this commander super easy to recast multiple times in a game, but provides a combination rarely seen in the command zone. While you can lean heavily into mill along with life lane, I decided to focus more on the life gain, as well as other ways to make the most of it. While Hope having life link lets you gain at least 2 life if you manage to deal combat damage, she's more the source of milling than the life gain. For that, I decided to diversify a bit how the deck will go about it. First off, the freest way of gaining life, which are lands that give it to you when entering the battlefield. Adventurer's Inn, Glimmer Post, Kabira Crossroads, Radiant Fountain, Sajiri Refuge, Seraph Sanctuary, and Tranquil Grove all gain us life by just entering. Best of all, they don't take up a slot on the deck. Some of the colored mana ones enter tapped, but that's no different than the other dual lands. Broker's Hideout, Cabaret Courtyard, Maestro's Theater, and Obscure Scorefront are also in here because they technically do the same, taking the count up to 11 lands that gain us life when entering. These, however, fetch for a basic land depending on the text. It's not that bad of a trade-off considering fetch lands are great at thinning the deck of lands. Illusions of Grandeur is perhaps the best life gain for mana spell in the deck. For just 4 mana, we gain a whopping 20 life when it enters. Sure, we lose 20 when it leaves, but gaining that 20 the first time means we at least mill our opponents for 20 cards that same turn, which is nothing to scoff at. Add to that the Wind Crystal and Alhammer's Archive doubling our life gain, and you really got something. With both in play, we just milled opponents for 80 cards. But later on, we'll see how else we double effects and triggers. For now, these artifacts are amazing here. The crystal also reduces the generic cost of our white spells, which is an amazing bonus considering the deck is mostly white. Not only that, but you can pay 6 to give your board flying and lifelink until end of turn. This will 100% matter, but soon enough we'll see why. This card was essentially made for Hope. Same with the Water Crystal. However, I did not include this card in the deck because I have other ways of maximizing how much is being milled without depending solely on the milling aspect of the deck. But you can definitely run this and similar effects like Bruvac if you wanted to. The Archive also gives double the amount of cards we draw beyond the first one in our draw step, which is amazing. Now, the bridge between gaining life and the payoffs in the deck are found with this group of cards. Guide of Souls, Hinterland Sanctifier, Lunarch Veteran, Soul's Attendant, Soul Warden, Impassioned Orator, Life Creed Duo, and Suture Priest. They all gain us 1 life whenever a creature enters the battlefield under our control. And this is at the crux of how I built Hope. I want the deck to not just gain a ton of life and mill the table, but to also function if Hope is dealt with or if we have to win by other ways. In other words, if I'm amassing a huge army of tokens, we'll gain life if these are out and mill our opponents if Hope is out, but if neither is the case, we still have a huge army to smash face with. To that end, I wanted to try and maximize the token production without changing too much the dynamic of the deck, which is still to try and mill as much as we can from each opponent's library. So, just as with life gain, the deck is running Castle Ardenvale, Valkaven Encampment, Fountainport, Mirex, and Springjack Pasture, as well as Legion's Landing to a certain extent. With the exception of the enchantment, none of these take up a slot on the deck and can be used to sink mana in order to make a token if we had nothing else to do, or if we just needed the token. Now, while the enchantment is great because for 1 white mana it enters to create a 1/1 with lifelink, mind you, it transforms into a land that can then do the same. Now, if this is too slow for you, don't worry, the deck is still running classics like Horn of Valhalla, March of the Canonized, Snake Basket, and Jacked Rabbit. These will create as many tokens as you paid into them. What sets them apart from similar effects is their utility in this deck. Remember that we need to gain life within our own turn to trigger Hope at the end of it. So sending the equipment on an adventure at sorcery speed is still a good way to sink your mana. Same with casting an enchantment or activating the basket at sorcery speed, or attacking with the rabbit. As a bonus, we can cast the equipment from the adventure and equip it onto Hope potentially making her not only a huge source of life gain thanks to her lifelink, but maybe also take out an opponent with commander damage. The tokens created by the enchantment also have lifelink, which is a massive bonus here. Snake Basket is a great way to just keep in play until you have an amazing payoff for so many tokens entering the battlefield. Grand Crescendo is another X mana effect to create X tokens, but this one is better because it also gives our creatures indestructible. Granted, this will more than likely be cast outside of our turn, but it's still super important. So much so that Flawless Maneuver and Clever Concealment are also included. While not everything has to be synergistic, keep in mind that X can be 0 for Grand Crescendo, and it'll still protect your board even if it didn't create any tokens for you. Going back to token production, Call the Copper Coats, Rabble Rousing, and Deploy the Front have the potential of creating an absolute ton of tokens. The first one requires about 7 mana total to make the most of it, but it will almost definitely create way more than 7 tokens. Same with Deploy to the Front. As for Rabble Rousing, being able to create tokens on demand by just attacking is absolutely busted here, similarly to Jackrabbit, especially since the deck does have the potential to aggro out. Will of the Mardu and Entrapment Maneuver are more reactive spells, but they also have the potential to create a ton of tokens after resolving. Will of the Mardu in particular if you control your commander, since you don't have to choose between tokens or interaction. Dollmaker's Shop is similar to Rabble Rousing when you unlock it, further fueling the overwhelmingness of the deck. However, when you unlock Porcelain Gallery, then you really should be able to aggro out, since each creature will be as large as the number of creatures we control. This gets out of hand very quickly, especially if both rooms are open, since you can swing out with everything, create a ton of toys, making your creatures even bigger, securing they survive combat if not outright winning you the game. Invasion of Segovia entering might not seem like it creates an exciting amount of tokens as the other effects in the deck do. However, they do have built-in trample, which could matter when they're pumped. In any case, these tokens are just a bonus. Hit this battle enough times to transform it, and now you have Cetus, which gives Convoke to your non-creature spells. If you already have a handful of creatures, these can tap down to massively fuel spells like the previously shown March of the Canonized, Jackrabbit, Grand Crescendo, Isgard's Call, Deploy to the Front, etc. One of the Word Soul does something similar, but for only the next spell you cast after activating it. With a board full of creatures, this does a ton of work, and if not, at least it can tap for white mana, making it the only other mana rock in the deck apart from Soul Ring. But we'll see the land-based ramp effects in the deck later on. Going back to tokens, the deck's running Helm of the Host, Irenicus' Vile Duplication, and Quantum Misalignment. These might not seem as grand as the effects we've just seen, but what better token to create than a non-legendary copy of our commander? Especially because that means more cards milled at the end of our turn, because each copy will put its own trigger onto the stack. Best of all, these tokens might be even more plentiful thanks to Ocelot Pride, Anointed Procession, Mondrak Glory Dominus, Ohertak Deepest Foundation, and Elspeth Stormslayer. You know I had to run these in a token-centric deck. Not only are these amazing to have in play along with Helm of the Host equipped to our commander, but are amazing with our more humbler token creators. That being said, they also let us not have to sink so much mana into our X mana token creating effects. Best of all, these also have other functions such as Mondrak not needing so much protection since it can make itself indestructible, Ohertak returning as a land if it were destroyed, and Elspeth being the best mono-white planeswalker yet. She creates tokens by gaining loyalty, can pump our board without losing loyalty, and her ultimate won't kill her, killing off a problematic creature instead. Absolutely amazing. Mirror Room can also create a copy when entering or when getting unlocked, but it won't work on Hope per se since the token would still be legendary. You could copy a non-legendary token copy of her though, or any other non-legendary creature worth copying. However, this room is just a bonus. The true room here is Fractured Realm. Sure, we can copy Hope's trigger by copying Hope herself, but opening Fractured Realm lets us copy her trigger outright, as well as any other trigger we control. So those effects that gain us life when creatures enter the battlefield, doubled. Those tokens that we create when attacking, doubled. Absolutely busted here. Adric Mathematical Genius, Stranic Resonator, Gogo Master of Mimicry, and Lithoform Engine are also included for the same reason, but these need to be activated in order to use them. But that's fine since we can save them for copying Hope's trigger if we gained a lot of life that turn. Or maybe we can copy another key trigger we control. As a bonus, Adric can be used to counter an ability while the engine can also copy spells. Gogo is an absolute beast of a mana sink, allowing us to copy that trigger X times. Super good here. Delny Streetwise Lookout and Y'shtola Rule can help us copy triggers but without using mana, similarly to Fractured Realm. However, these are more limited since Delny only works with creature with power 2 or less, which is still great because all of the ETB Lifegain creatures fall into that category, along with Hope herself. Not only that, but gives our weak creatures some form of evasion, facilitating other aspects of the deck. Each solo also blinks a creature at end of turn. This could help us gain life or at the very least quote-unquote untap a tapped creature in order to have it ready to block for the next turn. But getting 2 end steps means triggering Hope one more time, maybe more if we also include any other double trigger effect on top of that. The deck has the potential of gaining so much life and creating so many creatures that we could be incredibly aggressive once we reach a certain threshold. That's because we'll have enough creatures to send across the table without worrying about the clapback because of how high our life total should be, and because Archangel of Tune is also in the deck. The way this is worded means we only get 1+1+1 counter per life gain trigger, not life gained. But that's fine because the deck has so many life gain effects that the Archangel will still trigger a ton of times, massively pumping our board. Blighted Step, Festival of Trokin, and Peach Garden Oath also take advantage of our massive board to gain even more life. The land doesn't take up a slot on the deck, and while you do have to sacrifice it, by the time it comes to that, you'll have plenty of lands anyways. The 2 portal sorceries only cost a single white mana to cast, and while we need a big enough board to make it worthwhile to cast, the fact remains that we'd be gaining a ton of life from just these spells and a big board, regardless of anything else. We gain so much life in this deck that Will Sign of Peace is yet another way to reduce our mana costs. While Convoke and a board full of tokens will go a long way, imagine gaining 30 life while you have Will cured of Summoning Sickness. Tapping him will make any other spell you cast afterwards cost 30 generic less. While that might seem like an exaggeration, it will surely power through anything. Will of Lost Dreams and Drogskull Reaver also make the most of us gaining life by drawing us cards. If we're reducing costs via Convoke and Will, we can sink actual mana into the Wall's trigger in order to draw into a ton of cards. And if we're getting multiple small life gain triggers, then Drogskull behaves similarly to Archangel of Tune. We don't draw as many cards as life we gain, but if we gained 1 life from 10 different sources, this will trigger 10 times and draws 10 cards. Not only that, but it's a massive beater with flying, double strike, and lifelink. Azor the Lawbringer is another massive flying beater with the potential of drawing us a ton of cards. Not only that, but we gain X life too. Azor is essentially a Sphinx's Revelation that triggers when he attacks. That might not seem as ideal as sinking all of our mana into an end of turn before our Sphinx's Revelation, but keep in mind that the best time to gain life for Hope is during our own turn. Mentor of the Meek is similar to Will of Lost Dreams, but triggers whenever a small creature enters our battlefield. We do have to pay 1 generic each time to draw the card, but if we have any leftover mana, that should be fine. This is especially true when creating massive amounts of 1/1 creature tokens. Reliquary Tower is included because it doesn't take up a slot in the deck, and the deck has the potential of drawing into a ton of cards. The deck isn't even watered down from it since it's just 2 colors. Ignore the hate for this card, it is not a bad card. Now we already saw a couple of cards to help protect our board, but those don't deal with Mass Exile, Mass Blink, Max Bounce, etc. For that, we can simply counter the spell with either an Offer You Can't Refuse, Swan Song, Counterspell, Dovin's Veto, Negate, or Permission Denied. More often than not, we do not want that board wipe resolving, even if players have massive creatures and we just have a massive amount of weenie tokens. That's because our life total should be higher than Snoop Dogg at any given time, so we can buffer attacks while then swinging back ourselves. Plaza of Heroes is included to protect any key legendary creature we might have in play, even our commander. Although, as I previously explained, with how cheap our commander is, we can comfortably recast it multiple times in the game without issue, and even then, the deck can still function without her. Generous Gift, Stroke of Midnight, Unexplained Absence, and Winch Enchanter are included for our own interaction effects. Notice the lack of board wipes on our end, by what I just explained, but these are still great against any annoying permanent that needs to be dealt with without resorting to erasing the whole board. And if it really needed to be done, just let an opponent's board wipe resolve. It is what it is. As for powering through the deck, obviously a Soul Ring isn't going to cut it. Fortunately, we have access to land tax, which is an absolutely amazing 1-drop when you're not first. Just don't be greedy and grab more basics that can fit into your hand. As for getting basics straight onto the battlefield, Wayfarer's Bauble, Burnished Heart, and Navigation Orb do just that. It might seem like the deck is super mana hungry, but the curve is actually quite low. Most of the explosive plays are mana sinks where you aren't necessarily forced to pay a ton of mana. So with the handful of mana accelerants in the deck, you should be able to play it just fine. The rest of the deck is just the rest of the lands. The deck is running Hallowed Fountain, Prairie Stream, Deserted Beach, Sea of Clouds, Mystic Gate, Sky Cloud Expanse, and Command Tower, as well as 4 of each basic land for all of the basic land ramp effects in the deck. Notice that I refrained from running Ancient Tomb in this deck. That's because, as I was building it, it was the only game changer in the deck. Removing it made the deck fall into Bracket 2, which I feel is a more fitting bracket for this deck and the strategies within. However, as with all of my deck techs, You can build your mana base according to your budget. Whether you include more expensive cards or even cheaper cards is up to you. You do you. Similarly, if you want to up the bracket for your own build, go for it. This brew is just an idea of how to build around Hope Estheim. While you can build her with a focus on whichever part you want or more balanced than I did, she's definitely a super interesting commander, especially since there is no optimal way to gain life, build your opponents, etc. There's just so many different ways to do so. Hopefully you still get ideas from me either way. If you're interested in the deck list of this spicy brew of mine, you can find a link to it down in the description. I wanted to thank all my patrons for supporting me, and a quick shout out to all my higher tier patrons, the brewers, for their patronage. I'd also like to thank anyone using my TCG Player affiliate link. That also helps out the channel. I also want to thank any channel members. Your membership is greatly appreciated. And to everyone, thanks for watching this episode of The Brewery on the Commander Tavern. I am the Bennett Kirby, and happy brewing.